Ah, welcome, welcome. There's not much demand for storytellers these days, so it's nice to get a chance to speak to you, even if from beyond the grave now. It was so frustrating to die when I did. My tales had become such a great success, and I finally thought I was going to be established as a successful literary man after so many false starts. People thought I was being foolishly ambitious when I had 2,000 copies of the first edition done back in 1834. I had confidence, though. My short tales and poems, which I put in the Berwick Advertiser when I didn't have much news, had been well received. Walter Scott was not long dead, so I just thought there was a chance to fill the gap he'd left, though I was going to publish more in the style of Chambers' journals, with lots of short tales rather than long, rambling novels. Besides, I had to be bold. The owner of the Berwick Advertiser was likely to be appointing his son as editor to the paper in place of me when he returned from Edinburgh University in the near future. And sure enough, the tales proved a great success. They came out on Saturdays, and families would gather round the fire and read them on a Sunday night. A bit like modern-day soaps and costume dramas, they would eagerly await the next edition, as perhaps you would the next episode of Downton Abbey. It was as well as I had promoted them as good moral tales, so that folk could read them on the Sabbath. We soon had to double the print run, and then again, and then again, and I was making arrangements to distribute 30,000 copies a week before the first year was out, and we were having to reprint early editions. Such was the demand. Anyway, I digress a little. I want to tell you about the Monks of Dryburgh, contributed by Alexander Campbell, one of about 20 contributors who submitted work once I was dead, enabling the tales to continue for another 5 years after my death. Now, let me find it. It's in here somewhere. Here it is, published weekly. This one on the 9th of January 1836, priced, sold for 3 halfpence. That edition also had the second half of The Stepmother. Here it is, right at the back, the Monks of Dryburgh. These worthies were celebrated for good kale, that's the kind of broth that they made for visitors. But they were no less remarkable for their ingenuity in directing the wealth of their neighbours and dependents into their own coffers. In common with others of their profession, they assailed the deathbeds of the wealthy and persuaded the dying sinner that he had no chance of heaven unless he came handsomely down for their holy brotherhood before his departure. They were thus constantly on the alert when the death of a person in good circumstances was reported to be at hand. This intelligence no sooner reached them, and they were always well informed on such subjects, than they hastened to the couch of the dying person, at once to prepare him by spiritual discourse for the approaching change and to secure what they could of the sinner's temporal possessions in return. It was for such a purpose as this that 2 of the brothers of Dryburgh set out one day in great haste to visit old Laird of Meldrum, whom they had been informed was suddenly brought to the point of death, and the information was but too true.
Brothers, I bring sad news. I sat with the Laird of Meldrum as you instructed, he being sick and like to die. Well, he took some food and some wine, and with a great sigh, he passed away.
What? He's dead? But you were to tell us if there was any sign.
Yes, but it was so sudden, and I could not hear his confession, for I am not yet ordained. He has died unshriven.
Unshriven? He has died intestate, you numbskull.
Brother James, hush. You see, my son, it was the laird's expressed wish that he should leave all his land and heritable goods to the abbey.
And now you've let him die, you blockhead.
But would his wish not have been known and carried out?
Not without him having left a will. A notary would have taken down the details and signed it.
The disappointment was felt by all to be a grievous one, for the laird had been confidently reckoned upon as a sure game. While in this state of mortification, a bright idea occurred to one of the brethren, and he mentioned it to the rest, by whom it was highly approved of. This idea was to conceal the laird's death for a time, to remove his body out of the way and to procure someone to occupy his bed and pass for the laird in a dying state. Then to procure a notary and witnesses, having previously instructed the laird's representative how to conduct himself, that is, to bequest all his property to the monastery. This done, the living man be secretly conveyed away, the dead one restored to his place, and again the death publicly announced. This ingenious scheme of the monks met with universal approbation, and it was determined that it should be instantly acted upon. Fortunately, so far for the monks, there was a poor man, a small farmer in the neighbourhood, in the name of Thomas Dixon, who bore a singularly strong personal resemblance to the deceased, a circumstance which at once pointed him out as the fittest person to act in the required part. This parson was, accordingly, immediately waited upon, the matter explained to him, and the handsome gratuity offered for his services. "A bargain bet," said Thomas, when the terms were prepared to him. "Never ye fear. If I dinna make a good job o' it, blame me. I ken the laird well, and can come as near to him in speech as I'm said to do in person." The monks, satisfied that Thomas's assurances of fidelity, proceeded with their design, and when everything was prepared, the laird's body removed out of the way, Thomas extended on his bed, and the curtains closely drawn round him, they introduced the notary to take down the old man's testament, having previously intimated to the former that he was required for the latter for that purpose, of course, and 4 witnesses to attest the facts that were about to be exhibited. Everything being in readiness, the lawyer with pen in hand, the witness in the attitude of profound attention, and one of the monks intimated to the dying man that he might now proceed to dictate his will.
"Hear ye, good people, I, the Laird of Meldrum, do bequeath to honest Thomas Dixon, a long respected for his worth and pitied for his plight, all my movable and lion money."
What?
He's delirious. He knows not his words. Let the man speak.
"And to the aforesaid Thomas, the lands, my house, my byre and my barns, and my kye and my beasts, are to him, Petit Doon."
Are you please take? This is outrageous. We've been tricked.
When the dying laird had disposed of everything, he had the scene closed. The discomfited monks returned to their monastery, the notary and the witnesses departed, and Thomas Dixon, in due time, stepped into the comfortable living and defied the monks of Dryburgh on the peril of their good name, even to dare to hint how he had come by it. So that was quite an interesting, amusing tale that was written after my time. The tales were getting very popular by this stage. 1836, this was the 3rd year of publication. If you come and look over my shoulder, I'll show you how many different people were distributing the tales around the country by then. It was still being published on behoof of the widow of my widow, John Mackay Wilson of Berwick, by John Sutherland up in Edinburgh, who took over the publishing. And he supplied agents to the trade, sold to Groombridge in Paternoster Road, London, Salmon in Glasgow, Brown in Newcastle, Jaffrey in Berwick, Haywood in Manchester, Wilmer in Liverpool, Summerscale and Harrison in Leeds, Innocent in Sheffield, Purden in Hull, as well as local people, Thurnham in Carlisle, Clark in Dunfermline, Fair in Galashiels, Deans in Melrose, White in Durham, and so it went on, and even by then an Irish edition with Barry and Drew, and later there were to be editions in America, Australia, and even Germany.